Welcome, everybody. We are excited to have our October huddle. It's a great opportunity to get together with all our Fair Districts volunteers and all the folks who are pushing for fair maps in Ohio. We have more to cover this evening than we thought because we've added a few things at the last minute. So I'm just going to kind of dive right in. And this is a little agenda for what we're going to cover this evening. We're going to talk about where we're at with Ohio House and Senate maps and what's happening with the congressional maps and what the deadlines are that are coming up and that we expect. And then we're going to do a little mini refresh training on giving public testimony at hearings. And then we're going to talk about an event, actually a series of events that we are going to start on Monday. That's called Picket to Protest. We're going to do a mini training on Twitter so that when we are doing tweet storms, which we are planning to do, everybody can join, even if you've never been on Twitter before. We're going to do a very, very basic training so that everyone can at least get on and push tweet without anything complicated. And then we're going to introduce you to a new software that's called Greenfly that will allow us to share 30-second to 1-minute long videos that we're going to use to target some of those map makers, LaRose, DeWine, Faber, etc. And then we'll talk to you about current actions and upcoming events. So that's what we're going to cover tonight. We're going to get right into it. And I'm going to turn it over to Catherine.
So I am sure that I am letting you know things that you already do know. I think the thing that was the most shocking to me had to do with how little time the Ohio Redistricting Commission spent on their final day actually in the room making decisions. And so we know that they passed 4-year maps that are heavily weighted towards the GOP and are manipulated in ways that just are classic gerrymandering, the slicing and dicing that we expect to see. And I guess, when I look back and I think, they came in a little bit after 10:30 in the morning on the 15th, and the maps were passed a little bit after midnight on the 16th. So much happened out of the public eye. Also, all of the decisions were made out of the public eye. So, when basically they gavelled in and they gavelled out in less than 5 minutes, and on their, as they're leaving, Leader Amelia Sykes says, could we have a bit of a discussion about what the recess will entail and what the purpose of the recess is? Speaker Cupp, co-chair of the committee, said, we are recessing so we can continue some consultations that are going on, some work that is being done on the maps for the finalization that needs to be done, as well as any changes that might be considered in the interim. So they left and didn't come back until 11:15 p.m. And so, what's very clear, the end product, not great, but the process was also not great. There are 3 different lawsuits, and Tiffany's going to put links to those so you can read them and see them. One of the things that we discovered just a few days ago is that our map makers were fighting the depositions, but they are now in fact going to be required to do 2-hour-long depositions apiece, and they must be conducted by October 21st. And so at this point, the state legislative maps are in the court. And a big thank you to the plaintiffs. We appreciate, all the hard work that goes into a lawsuit. And I know for many of us, I got completely and totally excited about redistricting reform in December of 2014, when the state legislature actually went through a process where what they did is, they said, hey, we're going to put this before the voters. And to go from 2014, when there was a whole conversations about creating a more transparent and bipartisan process, et cetera, to get to the point that we would have maps created behind closed doors that only, were supported by one political party. It was a real letdown, but this is the point that we need to yes, mourn, but this is the point where we need to gather steam because we are still powerful and the congressional maps are incredibly, incredibly important. So we really need to gear up. And with that, Mia, if you will move us to the next slide. Okay, so I usually talk about congressional map making as a weird gauntlet. And that was because there was a worry that bipartisan map making was going to be really hard. So, first it goes to the state legislature with super majorities and 50% of both political parties in both chambers, and with a deadline of September 30th. The state legislature behaved as if they did not actually have a constitutional deadline of September 30th. They actually ignored their obligations. So the map making now goes to the Ohio Redistricting Commission. And this is, their opportunity to pass a 10-year map. And, as we're thinking about like what to expect, we should be, what we might have expected is that they would have already laid out a schedule and a plan so that we would know where we were going. But that actually hasn't, that hasn't happened yet. So I just wanted to encourage us all to be ready to, to testify and to go for hearings. But we don't know when that will be. But we have to assume a really short turnaround. And with that, Mia, if you go to the next slide, this is one that I do think, I'm sure you've seen this a million times, but it's important to realize that this is where we're in the process. We're in the stage where the commission actually has the opportunity. We have a deadline of Halloween, which makes me a little worried. It's a little scary. And, as we think about how is it that we are going to actually make these folks get together, I noticed that Jeff Wise is like, well, wait a second, who calls them in? So clearly the chairs can call them in, the co-chairs can call them in, but my guess is the governor could also do a little needling on that as well. At this point, it's very hard to understand why they have not come back. Secretary of State Frank LaRose on Friday talked about the need to get together as soon as possible. We're in the middle of the month at this point. So literally there are 2 weeks for a public map making process. And so, next step, it'll go off to the state legislature. And Mia, if you want to move along, I guess what I was wanting to say to us all is it has been enraging and depressing, but we need to be very, very clear. This is the point. They want us to be tired. They want to wear us down. This is the point that we need to gain some energy and really push and do what we can to make a difference. And with that, Mia.
Second, sorry, I was muted. Rob Thompson had a question in the chat where he asked, is it appropriate for us to write to the justices, about the lawsuits? And if so, should we be giving people their addresses?
So I do think the justices, they are not like elected officials. Yes, we do elect them, but they're not like the state reps where we want to put pressure on them. One of the things that we should all be aware of is that these justices live in this world and they are well aware of what we're doing. But I don't necessarily think that sending them, a note is going to be useful. And they may take umbrage.
Thank you. And Joanne had a question, and I think everyone's going to be able to just give their opinion on that. And I would personally say my opinion is the fact that the legislature didn't even bother to pretend to try to meet that deadline, and that there seems to be no information whatsoever right now about the process, does make one feel that it is tending towards smoke and mirrors as opposed to some real process that's going on. And thank you, everybody, for putting your questions in, and we'll try to answer them as we go along. And then there's a little section in the middle for questions as well. So now I'm going to pass it over to Lisa Worm, who's going to talk about testimony and public hearings and how to get ready.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this tonight. My name is Lisa Worm. I'm with Fair Districts and the League of Women Voters. So I just wanted to talk about the process as we saw it and what we might expect, and to help just review some of the testimony training that we did and the lessons that we learned from the redistricting commission hearings. So we don't know if we're going to have those types of hearings again. I lean not, but there will be some sort of hearings. So that's why we want to kind of review. We saw last time that they tried to limit the scope of testimony, which was really frustrating, saying that we couldn't weigh in on congressional maps because they were doing state maps, those types of things. So what we really want to focus on is being specific. So specifically about your community and how the map impacts you, or if we don't have maps, how the process has frustrated you and made it difficult for your community to make decisions. So always bringing it back to your personal story and your community. So, and part of that is getting prepared. Be prepared by October 31st. We haven't heard anything, but it'll be, if a hearing will come, we want it to be similar to the other ones where there is a large presence and we take up their time and make our voices heard. So, and then what to do if a reporter calls. So always direct them to Fair Districts, but if a reporter wants to talk to you individually, I would say just make sure, similar to testimony, to talk about your community. Catherine, do you have anything to add to that?
So I think it's likely that what will happen is that there will be local reporters that will want to talk to people. Like let's say you live in Cincinnati or you live in Toledo, they're going to want to talk to local people. And so one of the things that we can do is, if you want to speak to them and you want to get yourself prepped, that is something that I am very willing to do with you. So one of the things that I have done a couple times just recently is really help people kind of get themselves ready. And they've made for, most of us can do this and say why it is we care about things. I think the thing that is really important goes back to the same thing with testimony, the notion of telling your story and being really clear why you care about elections, why you hate being manipulated. Mia was adding, okay, reporters are always on deadline. And there are very few of them are calling for something that they're going to do in 3 weeks. So when you get a reporter phone call or you get a request from a reporter, one of the things to do is call them and ask what their actual deadline is. And then anyone can touch base with me. Mia will throw my cell phone in that you can text or give me a phone call. And I am very willing to help you kind of get ready to talk to folks. Simple tips like putting good lights on for your Zoom can make a difference. Anything else you wanted to add, Lisa?
No, thank you. I knew there were some additional items. Thank you for giving those further instructions. So, and it's great to get media coverage. So we can go to the next slide. So some of you may have taken advantage of these tools that we had for testimony. And we did an amazing job. And so it's that kind of energy that we want to take in. So those tools are still available to help you think about your testimony and how you might craft it. We have ways you can tell your story. You would just eat like a PDF fill-in guide, so you could talk specifically about your community, and we'll have tips. And if we're able to update them, we will on the website if we have information. So we just don't have any information right now. I wish we did. So preparation is key. So make sure you use those resources.
And I think I skipped a slide, so I'm going to go back if I
Okay.
can. There we go.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mia. So I think we did a pretty good job. We're allowed to be passionate and sometimes yell, but calling legislators names is probably not the best way to get through to them. So be as respectful as you can. You can still be firm and angry because we're all angry and they're being disrespectful. But make sure you keep it about the community rather than your behavior. So that's the tipping point, I would say. So again, if we have maps that they've already introduced, reference those maps specifically for your community. And you can really reference our maps from the competition, the winners. That would help both bolster any sort of point you would like to make. Like, this is an alternative you could go with. Unfortunately, we saw some of the meetings last a very long time, so I anticipate that they will last a long time again. So we have to just be prepared. And there's some other tips there as well that I'm sure.
Oh, bring snacks.
Oh, snacks, right.
Definitely bring snacks. I have to tell you, I was ready to eat, anything by the time we got to 11 p.m. that one night in Warrensville Heights.
Yeah, that was a long day. So in addition to just giving testimony, or you can also submit it written. So when we have those details on how to submit it, it should be the same process as before, but we never know what they're going to change or update. We know that it's been a frustrating process for everyone. So if you feel like what you can do with your written testimony, if you don't want to give it in person or can't, right now is a great time to get it as a letter to the editor into your local paper. And you could also just email your Ohio rep or senator about with your testimony, since it's related to your community and their district. We also have a I should say about the letter to the editor is that we have we have a electronic web tool available. So it has talking points and it will automatically send letters to the editor to your local paper. So it will help you do that. So in addition, we have some social media options available. We think that's a great way to, we'll talk more about that later in this webinar, but being able to record a video also helps you get your story together for testimony as well, and you can reuse some of your points there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. So, we've heard about the legislative maps, the General Assembly maps, and the congressional maps, and the process and the testimony that we're waiting for. And, but, I guess I'm taking on the role of being a little bit of the anger translator of the group, in that, we're coming up with great ideas of ways to express what we want and communicate with the map makers. But we also, there's genuine frustration and disappointment at, what has happened. And so as a group, we kind of came together and tried to think of something that we could do to show our disappointment and our frustration with this process. And we've decided to do a picket starting on Monday, an hour every day, and outside of LaRose's office. And it's kind of to be decided whether we walk to the other statewide, to the governor's office or to Faber's office. But we're going to start out at LaRose's office every day. We're going to bring our signs. We're going to bring our, wear our shirts, and we're going to just tell them, do your job. We'll have a countdown of some kind. There's 13 days left. There's 12 days left. Where are your maps? Where are the maps? Where are the hearings? Do your job. So we're really eager to get as many people there as possible. Like I said, we just kind of put this together today, so it's still a work in progress, and we want it to build. So we want to start out next week with a minimum number of people, at least maybe 20 people there every day, but we want to build to a larger event at the end of the following week. We'll give you more information about that when we have it. But if you're choosing one day to be there, then I would choose the final day. And we're just trying to get details about whether the church will be available again, et cetera. But there's a link there to sign up. I'm really hoping that everybody is clicking on that link right now, and that when I check this sign up at the end of this huddle, there will be tons and tons of folks signed up. It's just an hour. It's at lunchtime. Come out, bring a friend, wear your shirts, and get involved. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Colin, who's going to talk about another tactic that we're going to do that will work even if you aren't able to come to Columbus, but something that we'll do when there are public hearings. So, Colin.
Well, thank you, Mia, and thank you everybody for being here. And Mia did a great job kind of laying the groundwork for why we want to talk about Twitter. Twitter is a great platform to use for when you are unable to be at a event in person. And I wanted to cover some very basic functions of Twitter and show you some screenshots as to how to use them, as well as go over kind of the lexicon of Twitter to just kind of keep it as simple as possible. But first off, why do we want to do this? As Mia said, we are planning on doing Twitter storms during the public hearings, which just means that we are planning to inundate commission members with tweets and posts during the commission meetings, reacting in live time to what is being said, rebutting points that are made in real time. And so our presence can be felt in the social media space. Now, why is that important? Because traditional media, your print media, your broadcast news, they are beginning to cover social media more and more. I'm sure you all are aware, it seems like every other article you read on the Dispatch or Cleveland.com, it has screenshots of tweets that are either made by public officials, advocacy organizations, or anybody, and they're often included in the story and they help set the narrative. Another reason why we want to really build up the Fair District's Twitter presence is because volume builds momentum, both in people's conscience, but also in the Twitter algorithm. So, the more people are interacting on a given topic, Twitter will, automatically through its algorithm, view that as a topic of interest, and it will disseminate those posts to a wider array of audience, getting our message in front of more eyes and into more ears. And then finally, this is a direct advocacy touch point. Every public official has a Twitter page now. So it's a convenient way, rather than having to wait on the phone or send an email, you can just shoot off a tweet at a public official, and it's essentially like sending them an email. Their staffs are monitoring their social media platforms all day, every day, and tracking engagements. So this is just another direct way that we can get ourselves in front of our electeds and share our stories and hear our voices. So that's a little bit of the why we want to do this. And now we're going to get into the how. So next slide. I think you skipped one, Mia, or just perfect. So here I just kind of wanted to give the lay of the land, kind of a, Webster's dictionary for Twitter, for those that are not familiar or have not engaged a lot. So first of all, whenever you hear somebody say tweet, That is simply an original post that is created by an individual Twitter user. Think of it as a status for your Facebook page. It's just an original, it's original content created by a unique Twitter user. To follow, that is essentially you subscribing to the profile of a individual Twitter user. Think of it as friending somebody on Facebook. And if you follow somebody or an organization, this will show their tweets, their posts on your screen every time you log on. So you're following them essentially. Whatever they post, you will be seeing. To like a post or a tweet is the easiest way to engage on Twitter. And it also puts that tweet into your archive on your profile. So you can essentially save everything that you've liked. So you can go back onto your profile and review those. I tend to like a lot of things on Twitter, especially newspaper articles, because it's like it's a curation process in real time. You know, you can just go back to your Twitter page and scroll through and you have all these newspaper articles from years ago. Retweeting. It's another form of engagement on Twitter, and essentially it is sharing a post like you would on Facebook. You see a tweet, you retweet that. That means it just recycles that post through your profile. Again, it builds the algorithm and shows that individuals are engaging with this post, so it will help spread that post to other Twitter users as well. There's also an additional option when you retweet something. It's called a quote tweet, and essentially you are able to add your own caption to the post that you are retweeting. You'll see a lot of people do this all the time. Helps give context to, you know, news stories. People will retweet say a statement that was issued by an elected official, and then they would, you know, give their take on that quote as a quote tweet. So allows you to add your own take on somebody's original post. And then adding, which is the, you know, the @ sign that is in everybody's Gmail. By including this as well as a Twitter profile, or what's called a Twitter handle, that's, you know, how you interact with an individual's Twitter page. It allows you to send almost a direct message to that individual. They get a notification that you have mentioned them in a tweet. So this is the best way to, I like to @ public officials when I tweet, because, you know, it goes into their profiles and they can see that people are engaging with them and either asking them questions or spreading their message. And it's most likely to solicit a response, which does not happen frequently, but it does happen sometimes. So that's just a basic kind of vocabulary for Twitter. And now we'll get into kind of the specifics. Thank you. So the first thing I want to go over is following Twitter profiles. The best Twitter profiles to follow are news organizations, individual reporters, advocacy organizations, and public officials. I have a brief list here of folks, organizations, individuals that, you know, I follow, and I think anybody interested in redistricting in Ohio should follow. You know, when you go on Twitter, this is just a screenshot I took from the Toledo Blades Twitter profile. You can see here, this is just their standard, you know, profile page, and you'll see this icon in the center right of the screen that says follow. All you do is click that button, and now you are following that page, which means that anytime the Blade posts an article or, you know, an editorial or anything, that will come through to your Twitter profile. I follow the Dispatch, I follow the Plain Dealer, the Blade, the Beacon Journal, essentially every publication, every newspaper publication in the state. as well as a lot of the State House press corps and regional reporters as well. I think the three State House reporters that I include here, Andy Chow, Andrew Tobias, and Josh Rotenberg, each are pretty much assigned to redistricting. So they are posting a lot of things in terms of, they're in the halls of the State House. They have a conversation with Speaker Cupp. This is what he says on redistricting, or they get an email from Amelia Sykes about a development with redistricting. They repost that on their Twitter feed. So it's a great way to stay up to date. And then obviously some public officials here at the bottom that we want to make sure to follow so we can stay up to date and have those for when we want to engage directly with them. Next slide, please. Thank you. And again, this is just a screenshot of actually a post that Fair Districts put up earlier today about our noon meeting with our Fair Maps competition winners. And as you can see, I just circled the heart icon that is at the bottom of this post. That is the like button. So when you go to like something, you simply click on that heart button and you're done. It's liked, it's cataloged into your profile, so you can always go back and look and see what you have liked. And it starts to exponentially spread this post since you've engaged with it. Next slide, Mia. Same thing again. Retweeting, it's simply this, quasi recycling icon here at the bottom of the page. When you click on this, you'll be given the option to either retweet or quote tweet. Again, as I said earlier, quote tweeting just allows you to add your own individual caption to the top of what the retweeted post is. And we'll see an example of what that means on the next slide. Oh, I was mistaken. It's the next slide. But when we talk about replying to posts, it's simply clicking on that speech button there, and functionally like Facebook, it essentially allows you to comment on that post. It means the person who created the original post sees your comment, and then any subsequent person clicking on that post can see your comment and start interacting and beginning a conversation as well. Again, this is all about building engagement and expanding our reach and building our momentum through manipulating the algorithm of Twitter. Okay. And then finally, adding or, sending directed posts to individuals. You can see here, I've circled when I added at Frank LaRose. You can see here, I actually retweeted a post by Fair Districts Ohio. And when I did that, I chose to click quote tweet, which allowed me to create this individual or this unique caption above the article. And with that, I was able to at Frank LaRose, which means that he will get a notification of this post itself. So he sees that people are talking about him, they're reading the article or his quote in this News 5 article that was posted by Fair Districts. And again, just allows us to directly engage with our elected officials and whomever on this platform. So these are, the bare bone basics, but as somebody who uses Twitter on a daily basis, like myself, I really don't go pretty much beyond any of this. So if you have a grasp of these 4 or 5 methods of engagement, you essentially have Twitter down to a science, and you can start, engaging with elected officials in real time and staying up to speed with breaking news as it happens. And it's really just a great source of information if you're following the right accounts. Again, reputable news organizations, advocacy organizations, and independent journalists. Mia, I thought I saw you raise your question.
Yeah, I have a question, Colin. So what if someone joins Twitter and they start to follow Fair Districts? Is it useful for them? I mean, what if they just can't deal with anything else? Is it useful for them literally just to retweet Fair Districts, what we're putting out?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think that in this scenario, I don't think we're asking for much more. A lot of us in this space create a lot of their own content. What Catherine just said, the Brennan Center is creating a lot of content. So, if you just want to follow the 4 or 5 redistricting advocacy organizations, that's all it'll really take. That way you're not inundated with, the full breadth, the full avalanche that is Twitter. You can be very specific with who you follow to keep your feed clean. And so you don't have to be checking it all day. It's just you can go in there, quickly see if there's any posts from Fair Districts or from me or Catherine or Mia, and then you can retweet it, like it, and whatever you would like. So yes, yes.
Fantastic. That's so great. And we have someone here who says they're inspired to make their first tweet. So that's excellent. And again, as you guys know by now, I'm sure we're going to send a follow-up. We'll have these slides. We'll have all these lists of people that you should follow. We'll also, pretty often when we're doing an event, we'll let you know a hashtag. So that's something that you can follow as well. You can always search for that hashtag and then, retweet the things that have that hashtag in it. Thank you so much, Colin. And
before we go
yeah.
on, Colin, some folks have had some security concerns about Twitter. Anything that you want to say about that?
Well, so, obviously with Twitter, as in any sort of social media platform, there is an inherent possibility that there could be security issues. Twitter updates their security profiles very regularly because, they don't want their product corrupted by, security threats. They want to make sure that people feel safe using their platform. I guess that's just going to come down to an individual's, weighing of the pros and cons of doing this. Now, I will say that your chances of somebody hacking your profile are incredibly small because we all have relatively low numbers of followers and things like that. When people are hacking social media profiles, they're hacking Equifax and they're hacking, much larger, much larger profiles that have a lot more engagement, things like that. So I'm not worried about that as an independent user. But again, it's up to each and every one of you to decide that for yourself.
Thank you so much. And Becky Timmons, who's on, who I'm just about to introduce, had a useful suggestion there as well. So folks, if you aren't looking at the chat, I recommend that you do. There's some great conversation going on in there and some tips as well. So I'm going to turn this over now. Thank you so much, Colin. And I'm going to turn this over to Becky Timmons, who is from the National Office of Common Cause. And she does so many things. I'm not even sure I can say what her title is. So Becky, I think you should tell us what your title is and take it away.
That's very kind of you, Mia. So hi, everyone. Becky Timmons, as I am the communications coordinator for Common Cause. And as Mia said, I'm from our national office. So I am based in DC, but I'm very happy to be here with all of my Midwest comrades today. So just a quick bit from me. So Colin had some really great pieces of advice for social media. And so we're kind of going to stick to that lane. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about something called Greenfly. It's very straightforward and easy to use. You don't have to download anything or what have you. But what we want to use it to do is to hear from you, really. So we want to hear from you about why redistricting is important and what you want to see done about it. So I'm going to share in the chat this little link, and you can open this link either on your desktop or on your phone, whichever is easiest. And what it's going to do is just open a simple page that will ask, like, explain what we're asking for, and then have you select some media. So what we're asking all of you to do, and feel free to share this far and wide across your friendships and your networks, is create a video of yourself. And I know that can kind of seem daunting, but a video of you, or you and your friends explaining what redistricting means to you and why it is so important that it is addressed. I will get to that, Holly. That's a great question. So the main formula is, who are you? No need to be sorry. What do you want? What's happening? And what's your demand? So it would look something like, my name is Becky. I want Ohio to create an independent citizens redistricting commission so that fair maps can be created in a nonpartisan manner. That's currently not happening with our state of affairs here. And my demand is that Ohio legislators listen more to their constituents and the needs and wants of their citizens, so that we can have fair maps for all, something like that. Get to work. Great one. So pretty simple formula. Keep your video to 30 seconds or less. It's okay if it's a little longer. You want to keep your phone in the upright position, so don't film like this, but like this. And speak to your leaders directly. Say, Secretary of State Frank LaRose, we need you to do something about this. This is your job, and it's really important. So once you create that media, again, once you click on that link, it will take you to this site, and on the left-hand side, there's going to be a little big, it's a big red button that says select media. So just like you would if you're on Facebook or whatever, you would like go to your camera roll or your files and pick like the video that you want to upload. And it's just going to us here at Common Cause. But we want to share your stories with our larger social media following. So you can upload your photo. We're just going to ask for your name and your email and your handle. So like Colin said, if you have a Twitter handle, we would ask for that, or an Instagram. If you're on Instagram, we'd want your Instagram handle so that we can give you appropriate credit. And so that we can sort of tie your stories together and say, hey, the people of Ohio are, they're standing up and they're speaking out about why redistricting is important to them. And then we'll use your stories on social media. By using this site, you are agreeing to the terms and conditions that we will use this. So just so you know that is what it will be used for, but it's a really powerful tool, and we want you to be the voices of that, because you are the ones that are in these communities and the ones that are fighting for fair maps. So to have it come from you is going to be really of the utmost importance. It's very straightforward, but if for some reason you have questions, comments, concerns, I am going to be on here to answer any questions that you may have. But you can also email me, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And I see, Holly, you asked, whom should we address? Commission members, LaRose, and I'm actually going to let you address that. So
I think generally speaking, right now until the end of October, we'll address the commission members. We may actually ask you to target individual people. We may say like, okay, today we really want to hear people talking to LaRose, or we want to hear people talking to the governor. I would say to start with those three statewide, LaRose, and do the individually, Faber and DeWine. And I just want to say, we tried to do something like this before, but it was kind of clunky because people were making videos and they were emailing them to me, and I didn't know how to upload them, and it was kind of chaotic. And what this does is it essentially creates a place where we have a library that's all kind of figured out ahead of time, where we can go in and see these clips and say, okay, now, and what we can do is kind of multiply what Becky's talking about and what Colin was talking about. So, you know, somebody, Andrea Yagoda, makes a 30-second video telling LaRose to get to work. She uploads it here, and then we can tweet it at LaRose. We can take the little video and send it to LaRose and say, you know, hey, your constituents, the people of Ohio, are telling you to get to work. So it's stuff that we can use in different ways. And we will share them on social media. Becky, any comments about that, or?
No, that's a perfect way to describe it. Yeah, it's essentially just a library, and it just helps us keep track of them because we want to hear from you. But this is like, not to make things too complicated, but this is like a campaign essentially, right? So we're asking you, and then it puts them nicely. This platform that we're asking you to use puts them nicely in like a library so that we have them. I see, Nancy, you asked, are these videos posted every day? No, they're not automatically just uploaded if you choose to do a video. So like if you upload one and then you're like, wait, can you like not use that? Like, feel free to like send us a message. We don't have to use it. But what we want is to create stories with what you're telling us. So we might, pin together like a few videos and say, hi, I'm Becky. Hi, I'm Mia. Hi, I'm Catherine. And we want to tell Secretary LaRose about redistricting and like kind of do like a story thing or something like that. And they will be played on social media.
Awesome. Thank you
Good
so
questions.
much. We're gonna try it out and see how it works. And we will share Becky's email with you so that if you have questions getting this started, you can also ask us. We'll see how it works. We'll try to make as much use of it as we can. But what's important is for you to say what you feel, and also important to come out and protest and picket with us in real time. So thank you, Becky. Our next slide here is questions. I always like to get done in an hour, so I want to make sure we kind of zoom through the next part. Were there any questions, folks who were checking the chat carefully, that we haven't answered that we need to catch up with?
Jeff Wise had a question about whether the two Sykes, Amelia and Vern, her dad, they have called to actually get the commission moving.
Yep.
So, right now it's as it stands, his question was like, have the Democrats committed to actually getting started. So the Democrats were the first ones to call and say the Ohio Redistricting Commission needs to be convened and we need to get started. And then on Friday, that's the point that Secretary LaRose also added his voice saying, hey, we actually need to get started. We need to be together. We need a more transparent process than last time.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so the next slides are just some very basic things that I think that you all probably know about already. So if you've been getting our Fair Districts updates, the latest action that we had was a log your call. It had phone numbers for LaRose, DeWine, and Faber. Sometimes those phone numbers are tricky. Sometimes people email us back and say, I couldn't get through, or I couldn't leave a message, or the voicemail was full, or, we try our hardest to put the correct phone numbers, and sometimes they jiggle around on us. So just have some patience and keep trying. It's great if the voicemail is full. And if you haven't called yet, you can still call. You can call again. That's great. Of course, we have our petition, and then we have some talking points. Catherine, yes.
I was going to say, I called to confirm that the numbers were right, and when I called, I said, "This is why I'm calling." But basically, I wanted to let Auditor Faber know that I cared about fair maps and that I'd like to see the Redistricting Commission get together as soon as possible. And I also, said, and I wanted to confirm that this number works. And the person who answered the phone was like, yes, we've had lots and lots of phone calls. So
awesome. That's excellent. Now I know the Mike DeWine one is particularly difficult. It says you can't leave a message here. You have to go to his website. But if you ignore that and you just hang tight until the end of the message, you actually can leave a message there. They're just trying to trick you into thinking that you can't. We also have some talking points for writing a letter to the editor. So those are helpful if you want to do that. I know you are familiar with these postcards and these yard signs, but we want to remind you that, we did the Ohio House and Senate maps, but we're still working on congressional maps, and it's conceivable that we'll be working on them until the end of November. So postcards are still important. We've updated the instructions and the talking points, and yard signs are still important. If you need some, get in touch. There should still be some available. Wait, there should be another page. It disappeared. Here it is. Upcoming events. We have a huddle scheduled for November and December. This is the sign up for the Picket to Protest that I'm excited to go and look at and see all the signups that have happened. And then we had this really great webinar earlier today where the 3 top place map winners talked about their maps. And then next Wednesday, we're going to do another webinar where they basically respond to people's comments and they show how they could update and possibly improve their maps based on the things that people have asked for. And we have a link here that Tiffany has put in the chat that is for you to put your thoughts. And Iris said at the very beginning of this meeting, she thought, well, I don't have anything really, wonky map maker specific to put in. And I think it's fine to just submit and say, I really care about this county being together with that county, or, you don't have to be super, super detailed. You can just kind of say your wish list. You could even say, I like this about this map and this about number 2 and this about number 3. And I wish they could all, be together somehow. So, feel free to add whatever you want there. This is our contact. Again, we will share these slides with you. Any other questions or comments before we jump off? We really so appreciate, this has been a long haul. I mean, for some folks on here, it's been a 20-year haul, but even for those of us who've only been on for the last couple of years in this fight, it's been long. And the first part was, so disappointing, but it's really, really important that we keep pushing and we keep fighting and we keep paying attention. And I'm hoping to get some momentum around our protests starting next week. And if those of you who are out of town want to choose one day to come, we will let you know what day that'll be. It'll be towards the, likely to be the 28th, but, we'll confirm that.
Or come when you're available is what
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
The more the merrier.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Can we give all of you a round of applause? I'm going to put my little clappy sign on if I can. Colin is clapping. I'm clapping. Thanks, everyone. We'll be in touch with a follow-up.
And a big thank you to everybody.
Yep. Thanks, Colin, Lisa, Catherine, and Becky.
Thank you all.